Hey, do you guys know that rat guy from Ninja Turtles? Yeah, what if he ran a ninja death cult? Yeah, the IDW TMNT books get pretty weird at a certain point. I'm gonna give one warning, and one warning now, this video will contain spoilers for the IDW TMNT series. If you do not want that, please click away now, go read volume 7 of the IDW collection, and then come back to this video. So in issue 50 of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Splinter successfully kills Shredder and takes over the Foot Clan, and this book picks up immediately after that. Now that Splinter is in charge of his own ninja death cult, what exactly does he do with that? Well, kind of nothing at first, and then a lot of things. This book collects 4 main arcs of the IDW series, each arc being signified by a different artist. The first arc being issues 51 and 52 with art by Ken Gehring. The second arc being issues 53 through 55 with art by Michael Diolinas, whose name I am so sure that I did not pronounce correctly. The third arc is issues 56 through 58 with art by Mateus Santuloco. And the last arc being issues 59 through 64 with art by Dave Watcher. I'm gonna be honest, as someone who's been keeping up with these Turtle softcovers since they've been releasing, this book is not the greatest one that's been released so far. The quality of the arcs in this book range from pretty good to what the actual hell did I just read. The first arc by Ken Gehring falls strictly into the category of what the actual hell did I just read. This first arc follows Splinter and the Turtles as they lead the Foot Clan against a new street gang called the Street Phantoms, who have got to be some of the most forgettable villains I've ever read in all of fiction. I'm so sorry. The Street Phantoms are a group of generic, technological gangsters being led by a guy who claims he's very intelligent, but we never ever see that intelligence in play and is just looking to get some money. There is nothing of substance here in this villain. What this arc does do, though, is it introduces us to a new character by the name of Jenica, who is a foot assassin for Shredder, who is actively trying to assassinate Splinter to restore the Foot Clan back to their honorable ways. But upon failing in that mission, Splinter, as opposed to removing her from the Foot Clan entirely, chooses to take her under his wing and raise her as a new ninja for the Foot Clan, as a sort of representation of what the Foot Clan is going to be going forward. Let's see how long that lasts. And it doesn't really help that I personally just don't really care for Ken Gehring's artwork. It reminds me of the Image Turtles books, but I personally just don't really care for it all that much. The only interesting part about this 2-issue arc is seeing how Michelangelo is currently dealing with the sort of temporary loss of his family, since Michelangelo chose to leave his family and the Foot Clan entirely after Splinter killed the Shredder. But beyond that, these first 2 issues really just don't have much substance going on, unfortunately. This next arc, in issues 53 through 55, actually takes the only interesting part about the first arc, which was Michelangelo and his thought process, and leans in on that. This arc I like to call Michelangelo Joins the Mighty Mutanimals, which, like the name suggests, Michelangelo joins the Mighty Mutanimals, which are currently being led by Old Hob, as well as a bunch of assorted other ragtag mutants. And in this arc, we get to see more of Michelangelo's psychology. He believes that what he is doing with the Mutanimals is good because the Mutanimals would never ever kill people or never ever do anything wrong. Or at least that's what Old Hob promises him. At the end of this book, Michelangelo follows Old Hob to a warehouse where he finds Hun, the former leader of the Purple Dragon Gang. And it's at this point that Michelangelo realizes that maybe the Mutanimals aren't any better than his own family anyways, and he's back to being on his own again. And I gotta say, with full bias, with Michelangelo being my favorite turtle, this might be my favorite arc in the entire book. I say might because the next arc is also very, very, very good. In the third arc of this book, with art by Mateus Santuloco, we are finally introduced to one of my favorite characters in the entire Turtles franchise, Leatherhead. And I'm going to be honest, this might be my favorite version of Leatherhead, period. He is intelligent, he is cunning, he is brute, he is imposing, he is everything Leatherhead should be. This third arc of the book is played as sort of a whodunit murder mystery. The Fugitoid is actively trying to revive what remaining Utroms are left on the Technodrome, believing that they are innocent, they are not warlords like Krang was, and is actively trying to give them their lives back on Earth in any capacity that he can. It's also important to know that Leatherhead has actively been staying on this island for basically the last 200 years since he's been alive. But now that Burno Island is no longer habitable to non-Utrom-based life, Leatherhead has to find a new home. And he is actively trying to do that with the help of both Honeycutt and the Turtles. For the last 200 years, Leatherhead has been storing his own personal supply of mutagen, which is going to be able to be used to save every single Utrom that is currently in stasis on the Technodrome. When all of a sudden, one of the Utroms dies, and the Fugitoid is ripped to pieces. Donatello, with the help of one of the Utrom scientists, is able to restore the Fugitoid's consciousness and figure out who killed the Utrom. And who would have guessed it? It was Leatherhead. We find out after 3 issues that Leatherhead has been lying to every single one of the Turtles as well as the Fugitoid. There is so much more history behind him that he has been letting on in this entire arc. Leatherhead, like in almost every other version of his character, was experimented on and tortured by Krang, resulting in an extreme hatred and bigotry towards every single Utrom in existence. Leatherhead understands that Krang was the Utrom who experimented on him and tortured him for centuries. But now that Krang is gone, Leatherhead doesn't really care. All he wants is to see every single Utrom eradicated, and he doesn't care how. Leatherhead then goes on a rampage through the Technodrome, tearing and ripping through anyone and anything that gets in his way, almost resulting in the death of Michelangelo. Seeing no other option, Donatello teleports his three brothers as well as Leatherhead into New York. The three brothers are able to safely escape, and Leatherhead dives into the Hudson River, never to be seen again in this book. And I'm gonna be honest, this is my favorite arc in the entire book. The Michelangelo and the Mutantos book is a close second, but oh my god, this Leatherhead on the Technodrome arc was so good. This then leads directly into the, wait, hang on a minute, maybe there's 5 arcs, maybe I did the math wrong. I was wrong, there's actually 5 arcs in this book, not 4. The 4th and 5th arcs have the same artist, so I kind of just blended them together. I apologize for that. If anything though, I think this just goes to show how forgettable arc number 4 really is. Arc number 4 serves as a sort of pseudo-sequel to the Casey and April miniseries, which, if you've watched my previous video on the volume 6 of this series, I did not care for and found incredibly disappointing. And honestly, this 3-issue arc was just fine. Not anything crazy, not anything super bad, just fine. Arc number 4 sees the Fox Witch Kitsune finally fully hypnotizing Alopex and sort of speeding along this game that she's experiencing with her siblings. And in all honesty, I could summarize this arc in about 4 sentences tops. Kitsune tries to retrieve the body of Shredder to revive him once again. She fails in that, she escapes off to who knows where, and Alopex is nowhere to be found. That is the entirety of arc number 4, which I think just goes to show how just okay this arc is. Nothing particularly of note happens aside from Alopex leaving the Foot Clan to who knows where. This results in Raphael, who was very close with Alopex, now starting to see things from Mikey's point of view a little bit more, and questioning why exactly they're doing what they're doing, and if Splinter is really qualified to lead the Foot Clan the way that he is. Now, it's important to know that arcs 1, 2, and 4 have all been leading up into arc number 5, which I have to say is one of the most disappointing story arcs I have read in Turtles history. In the background of every one of these arcs, Splinter has been gearing up for a war with the Street Phantoms to finally put them down for good. He's going to take the Foot Clan and every one of his sons straight to the Street Phantoms headquarters and put them down. And I have to say, this is the most out-of-character Splinter has ever been written, in my opinion. Worse than the 80s cartoon, worse than Mutant Mayhem, and worse than the Tales of the TMNT cartoon. Splinter is absolutely unbearable in this last arc. Now, from a writing standpoint, I understand what the creative team was trying to go for. Splinter is actively becoming more and more like Shredder day after day after day. But personally, after this man has lived 2 lifetimes, I just don't really see how that's realistically plausible. Splinter makes a lot of really stupid decisions in this arc. Splinter actively goes out of his way to make sure Donatello's scientist friend gets kidnapped by these Street Phantoms as another piece in this grand war that he is planning with the Street Phantoms. He understands that this scientist will be tortured and maimed and brutalized, and he doesn't care because he knows that he won't die. This is not the Splinter that I know. It's at this point that Donatello, alongside Raphael and Michelangelo, begin questioning whether they can truly trust their father and his actions. Leonardo, on the other hand, is still actively defending the choices that his father makes, which I will say, as out of character as this series is for Splinter, it's incredibly in character for Leonardo. And it's not just the 4 turtles that Splinter's actively manipulating. He actively sends out Casey Jones to go fight the entirety of the Purple Dragons gang as a means of recruiting them into the Foot Clan. And Casey Jones, who recently broke up with April O'Neil, is in an incredibly malleable and an impressionable state. He doesn't really have a lot going for him right now, so he believes that this mission from Splinter is the only thing he has left to live for. Or at least that's how it felt to me. In this last arc, Splinter actively manipulates every single person in his life to do his bidding. This extends to secondary characters as well, like Jenica, who Splinter actively took under his wing to ensure that she'd become a better ninja than she was when Splinter was leading the Foot Clan. But instead, Splinter ends up being no better than Shredder and sends Jenica to personally assassinate the leader of the Street Phantoms. She murders him in cold blood right in front of Leonardo, and this is the moment Leonardo realizes that Michelangelo has been right the entire time. Splinter is not qualified to lead the Foot Clan, and Leonardo wants nothing to do with what the Foot Clan is. There is no purifying them, no matter who is leading them. So overall, I gotta say, I did not care for this book. The arcs present either just aren't great or are flat out character assassination for characters like Splinter. As a result, I can't give this book any more than a 5 out of 10. This is one of the lowest ratings I have given a book on my channel to date. Between horrible mischaracterizations, mid-art, and dangling plot threads, I can't rate this any higher. While I understand that a lot of these arcs were probably just set up for arcs later down the line that I will end up enjoying significantly more than this, that does not excuse this from being a poorly written series. And it pains me to say that because those first 50 issues of the IDW TMNT series I hold very, very near and dear to my heart. They are some of my favorite independent books I have read, period. But after issue 50, it's pretty clear that this book takes a very, very severe drop in quality. That's all I have for this week, guys. I hate doing negative reviews. I really do. I always try to make these videos as positive as I can, but I really can't give this book any higher of a rating than I already gave it. That's all I have for this week. Thank you so much for watching. Follow me on all my other social medias and have an amazing day. Thank you.